Okay, good evening everybody. Thank you for attending the meeting of the Licensing and Public Safety Committee today, Tuesday 21st of October 2025. Before we start this evening, I'd like to outline some housekeeping rules. There are no planned fire alarms, but if it does sound, please leave via the emergency exits, which are not that door there, are these doors here. Thank you. Can I request that all mobile phones are kept on silent or switched off? Thank you. And just remind everyone, only members of the committee present in person are entitled to vote this evening. Please note this meeting is recorded and live streamed on YouTube. The web link for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting, which can be found on the Council's website. Members on Teams, I'm not sure, we do have a couple, are asked to keep their microphone on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. Could I remind members to unmute themselves once they have finished speaking to enable the meeting to proceed properly? I think that probably meant mute. Once you finish speaking, to switch yourself off. Okay, before we move on to the items of business this evening, I'm sure members will have been saddened to learn of the passing of Councillor Harry Hancock. He was a member of the Licensing and Public Safety Committee for a significant number of years and brought a wealth of experience and expertise. He will be sorely missed, and I would like to invite members to take part in a 1-minute silence as we pay our condolences to Councillor Hancock's family. Thank you. Okay, thank you. If anyone wants to say any words? Anyone? That's fine, we'll carry on. Okay, Coral, do we have any apologies for this evening?
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Paul Wharton-Hardman and Councillor Chris Lomax.
Thank you. Members are requested at this stage in the proceedings, any items on the agenda which they intend to declare an interest. Members are reminded that if the interest is a disclosable pecuniary interest, they must leave the room for the whole of that item. Does anybody have anything to declare tonight? Okay, item 3. I have the minutes of the last meeting of the Licensing and Public Safety Committee held on Thursday the 24th of April in front of me for approval. Are there any points of accuracy on the minutes? Good. Can we propose the minutes? And seconded? Thank you. And then can we just... And then can we just vote for their approval, please? Thank you. Item 4, very similar. I have a set of minutes from the meeting of the General Licensing Subcommittee held on Monday the 28th of July 2025 for approval. Any points of accuracy? Councillor Forshaw.
Thank you, Chair. I've got down that there was a subcommittee meeting on the 15th of July. So, but I haven't got a record of one being on the 28th. Are the then dates actually correct?
I'll just get those confirmed for you.
Sorry, Chair, just through you. The sub-hearing on the 15th of July was moved due to the applicant's availability, and it was held on the 28th of July.
Okay, thank you. Any other points of accuracy? Okay, can we have a proposer for those minutes? And seconded? Thank you. And all those in favour of approval? Thank you. Right, whizzing through. Item 5, vehicle age policy. Members are advised that this policy and report can be found on page 9 of the report, and I invite Chris to talk us through it.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just start the slideshow in a moment. Has that come up yet?
Yeah, it's on, yeah.
Okay, so agenda item 5 is vehicle age policy. So recommendations to members of the Licensing Public Safety Committee are to consider the proposed changes to the vehicle age policy wording recommended by officers and agree that officers undertake a consultation exercise with stakeholders on the proposed changes. To agree to receive a report to the outcome of the consultation exercise at a future meeting. So background to the vehicle age policy. So the vehicle age policy was reviewed in April 2022. And members of the licensing.
Sorry.
Are we okay?
Yeah, it's just hasn't switched pages.
Is it not doing it?
No.
Right, okay. Technical issue on the first one.
It was bound to happen, wasn't it? The first one. That's it.
Dunno.
Yeah, that looks it.
It's still on the
Okay, just to let everyone know on Teams and people present, we're just having a few technical problems we're just trying to sort out. We'll resume the meeting as soon as they're fixed.
Recommendations to members today are to consider the proposed changes to the vehicle age policy wording recommended by officers, to agree that officers undertake a consultation exercise with the stakeholders on the proposed changes, and then agree to receive a report of the outcome of that consultation exercise at a future meeting. So, in April 2022, members of the Licensing and Public Safety Committee passed a new vehicle age policy which gave emphasis to new restrictions on the ages of licensed vehicles dependent on the emissions rating of that vehicle. At the meeting, members proposed to the new policy which allowed for newly licensed vehicles with emissions rating of more than Euro 6 to be licensed up to 6 years old when first licensed and then stay licensed until 12 years of age. The intention behind the policy was to provide an incentive to the trade to buy lower polluting vehicles which could be licensed for longer than more polluting vehicles. Licensing vehicles with lower carbon dioxide levels would help to create a fleet of lower polluting vehicles, which would help towards the authority meeting their air quality action plan. So what is Euro 6? So Euro 6 applies to most cars registered after the 1st of September 2015. Euro 6 is given to a set of limits to harmful exhaust emissions produced virtually by any vehicle powered by petrol or diesel engines. This includes hybrid cars too, because they use petrol and diesel engines under the bonnet alongside their electric elements. It benefits 67% reduction in permissible levels of nitrogen oxide in diesels and the introduction of particle number limit for petrols. In 2022, the vehicle age policy was passed until 2025, but members also requested an update on both policies after 12 months to report back on the policy was working as an incentive to buy low polluting vehicles, the availability of electric and hybrid vehicles, compliance of our equality duties with regard to the available wheelchair accessible vehicles. So in 2023, Office advised that the policy was working, and since its introduction, officers have found that all new vehicles licensed had been Euro 6 rated vehicles, with the exception of some larger vehicles which were needed as special needs transport vehicles as per an exemption within our policy. This was in line with current ULEZ rules by the Transport for London, which has been Euro 5 rating. So the current position, so since the last vehicle age policy was introduced, the Council has received requests from the trade to remove the lower age limit on the vehicle age policy. Currently, the Council will not accept vehicles onto the fleet that are no more than 6 years old when first licensed. And the trade has stated how they're finding it hard to obtain high-specific vehicles within the age policy due to financial constraints. With the influx of externally licensed vehicles operating in our area, it's important to be competitive and present an attractive option to new and current drivers to be licensed in South Ribble and not licensed externally to come back to work in South Ribble. This is a position the Council's not been in before, and it is a national problem. The Council's got numerous vehicles which are licensed, which are much older than the lower age policy, which are working in the borough. Obviously, these vehicles were licensed before they were 6 years old when they were first licensed, and they're under the maximum age limit of 12 years currently. So they are compliant with the policy. Officers feel the current policy is counterproductive, not licensing new vehicles which have passed the required roadworthiness test and are in good condition with low mileage. An example would be a new vehicle requested to be licensed which is 7 years old, registered in 2018 in excellent condition with full service history, low mileage and a high specification for passenger comfort. This application would currently be turned down on the current policy. However, a currently licensed 9-year-old vehicle could be driving round because it's been licensed for 3 years in the borough. Members are aware that South Ribble's got a responsibility to ensure that hackney carriages and private hire vehicles are suitable, safe, fit and fit for purpose. Vehicles must meet conditions as to the roadworthiness certificate for suitability, signage, appearance and comfort. Vehicles are licensed by South Ribble are required to be tested via roadworthiness every 6 months. And this is a more in-depth test than examined independently by the DVSA registered MOT stations, which would be 12 months. Members should be reassured that these stringent tests mean our licensed vehicles are safe as possible, and these tests are vital, particularly for those vehicles towards the end of the upper age limit. Members should also note that when considering the age policy of the licensed vehicles in this borough, not all authorities require their vehicles to be tested every 6 months, as we do at South Ribble, and just require a standard MOT certificate every 12 months. Therefore, it's less likely for defects to be on South Ribble licensed vehicles. So I did have a slide with the ages of different boroughs. So if you've got that in the report, I can't tell you what page it's on. Page 14, sorry. So we've got Chorley neighbouring borough. They've no age restriction, but they do have a policy on Euro 5 or higher, with an MCAP safety rating of 4 or higher. Preston have no age limit or no restrictions, neither of Blackburn and Darwin, neither of Bolton. Hyndburn is an upper age limit of 15 years when first licensed. Ribble Valley, no age limit. Blackpool, 14 years when first licensed, no upper age limit. Fylde, no older than 12 years. West Lancs, no older than 15 years. Lancaster have no age restriction, but it is Euro 6. Wyre have no age limit, Euro 4 for petrol, Euro 6 for diesels. Knowsley have no age limit. Wolverhampton have got a 12-year upper age limit, but no lower age limit. And Wigan, saloon-type vehicles no older than 12 years. Wheelchair accessible vehicles 17 years. So to recap, the recommendations to members today is to consider the proposals by officers for the vehicle age policy, to agree that officers go out to consultation with an exercise of stakeholders for the proposed changes, and agree to receive a report back at a future meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this? Councillor Forshaw.
Thanks, Chair. When you look at page 12.30, when it says there's been a reduction in the number of licence applications as numerous drivers are choosing not to renew their South Ribble licence, I'm trying to think of the rationale for still imposing a 12-year age limit when comparable authorities surrounding us don't have any age restriction. Surely if we wanted to have more licensed drivers, we would copy what other comparable authorities are doing and not have any age limits or restrictions. When we're talking about, I mean, we can even compare Knowsley, who I know some Uber drivers might use to be licensed. They have no age limits or restrictions. So when we're talking about issues of not having control over drivers coming from out of the borough, it seems a bit counterproductive to want to get the number of applications up and still put in a 12-year age limit in it when they can just go and get a licence somewhere else, work for Uber or something comparable and just come into the borough. It just seems a bit counterproductive to me.
If Councillor wants to propose that, that could be something that we go out to consultation on as well, I guess. Yeah, I think it's a valid comment, but we've looked to take that lower age policy out because the policy's been restrictive and we've sort of de-restricted it over the last sort of 2 or 3 years. We didn't know whether that was asking too far to take that higher age policy out as well, but that's something, if that's what committee want to do, we can go out to consultation on that as well.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Buckley, if you want to propose that and we get a seconder, then we can move that forward and get it looked at.
Happy to propose, Chair.
Do we have anybody to second it?
Seconded.
So, any other comments? Councillor Williams.
Can I make just a slight amendment to that? I know we've done lots of work around emissions or whatever. We've got Euro 6 vehicles. I think it'd be a shame if we lost that. A shame if we actually lost that. And I'm wondering whether the trade might be a bit put out by the fact that we might remove all age restriction. And then if we're removing that, are we going to keep the Euro 6 aspect to it? Because they might think, hang on a minute, you know, the goalposts have moved quite a little bit here. They might get a little bit put out by the fact that we could use any vehicle up that's over 12 years old. Are we, just to clarify, are we still including Euro 6 in vehicles that would be over 12 years old?
I believe so, yes, is the quick answer.
In that case, I'm quite happy to go with the proposal about the age limit.
Any more comments or questions about that article, that item? Okay, thank you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Is Councillor Forshaw happy to obviously have that as an amendment to your proposal? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the recommendations are to consider the proposed changes to the vehicle age policy wording recommended by the officers, to agree that officers should undertake a consultation exercise with stakeholders on the proposed changes, including the change that has been proposed by Councillor Forshaw, and to agree to receive a report on the outcome of the consultation exercise at a future meeting. Could I get somebody to propose that, please?
It's already proposed.
Is it already done? We've done that. That's fine, my mistake.
You just need to vote now.
Yeah, so all those in favour of that? Thank you. Okay, item number 6. Licensing Act 2003, review a statement of licensing policy. Members are advised that this report can be found on page 29 of the document. And I invite Chris again to speak on this.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item 6. So this is the consultation feedback to the Licensing Act 2003 review of statement of licensing policy. So the recommendations to members of the Licensing Public Safety Committee are to note the content of the report, consider the consultation responses and determine whether to proceed to accept the offer of recommendations. If members are minded to accept the recommendations, then forward this report to the next meeting of the Council with a recommendation for formal adoption of the proposed policy, which would run until 2030 unless any amendments were made. So just as a recap, the duty of the licensing authority is to publish a statement of licensing policy. This is under Section 5 of the Licensing Act 2003, and it requires to be published and determine the statement of licensing policy at least every 5 years. The policy must be published before the Council carries out any of its licensing functions under the Licensing Act, and the current policy is effective until this year of 2025. As such, it is up for renewal. The purpose of the statement of the licensing policy is to promote the licensing objectives, and those are prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The policy promotes the principles applied when carrying out our statutory licensing duties, when considering and making decisions on applications made under the Licensing Act 2003, and it details how licensed premises should operate and informs our decisions on whether to issue a licence and on what conditions could be imposed. The statement of licensing policy is used for applicants, licence holders, residents and responsible authorities alike. So the Licensing Public Safety Committee on the 11th of March 2025 considered the report which outlined the proposed draft revisions required to the Council's Licensing Act policy. The full report and supporting documents can be found within background document 1. Members agreed to the draft policy to be sent out for a period of consultation. Members asked for the section of policy regarding violence against women and girls to be made more gender neutral, as anyone can be subject to violence and harassment in licensed premises. The consultation responses. So the consultation took effect between the 7th of May to the 29th of June for 6 weeks. The consultation was available to the public on the Council's website and sent via email to every premises licence holder, responsible authority and the list of relevant consultees within the policy. 5 responses were received, 2 being from responsible authorities and 3 being made from the members of the licensed trade or members of the public, although 2 responses just stated that they had they've read the policy and they had no comments to make. So the summary of the public consultation. So we had comments that stated, I do not believe that participation should be made mandatory for licensing conditions for PubWatch. By nature is a voluntary organisation. I fully support the objective of improving safety for all residents, visitors, particularly in context of the nighttime economy, and recognise the seriousness of drink spiking and sexual harassment. I'm concerned that the wording in section may unintentionally appear discriminatory or exclusionary by referencing only violence against women and girls. I'm concerned that the wording of this section risks excluding other vulnerable groups who may also experience violence and harassment, within or around licensed premises. And it referenced saturation controls, but just to make reference to that, we don't actually have any saturation controls within the policy. So we received consultation feedback from the police, and to summarise that as well. So they said it's great to see that the authority are considering spiking within the policy, along with tackling sexual harassment and violence against women and girls. They've provided us a link regarding anti-spiking advice and reported anti-spiking, which has been included in the policy. They mentioned cumulative impact zones. It's good that you're not considering such any zones of the policy, but of open mind in case there could be one needed in the future. It also stated, as you know, I'm very keen on ESAG and pleased to see that this is a consideration. And delivery of alcohol is a particular concern, and it mentioned that test purchasing could be on for future plans. So the recommendation for changes to the proposed policy following the consultation exercise. So as public safety is paramount for licensing authorities, from time to time the statutory guidance changes to address concerns raised within regulating licensed premises. So these are included within sections 37 to 44 of the report. The changes within the policy have been made to address the relevant changes to government guidance and comments raised from the consultation and members of the committee at the last meeting in March. It's therefore considered important to adopt these revisions to the statutory licensing, to the statement of licensing policy for the period up to 2030, and the policy has been adapted since the consultation, taking into account the responses since the draft policy was drawn up, which now adopts a more gender-neutral theme with regards to prevention of harassment and violence within licensed premises. So the following sections outline the proposed changes with policy. So removal of obsolete and unnecessary information, revisions to policy, so we've updated the live music exemption in 3.2, minor revisions to the cumulative impact statement wording, although there's no impact policy required in South Ribble, and that's section 17.1, 17.2. Minor changes to integration strategies and avoiding duplication, that's section 30, and minor revisions to dates and contact emails. So additions to policy, 11.10, spiking prevention and tackling sexual harassment and prevention of violence against women and girls. Section 11.11, eliminating unlawful discrimination to advance equality and opportunity to foster good relations between persons of different protected characteristics. And also part 11.11, promoted inclusivity and safety in venues, particularly for the LGBTQ plus community, by encouraging staff to be aware and supportive of anybody who might need help or feeling unsafe. Large-scale events, 31. Large-scale events and festivals, 31. Event Safety Advisory Group, 32. And alcohol delivery, 33. Cumulative impact policy. Cumulative impact is the impact on the promotion of licensing objectives on a significant number of licensed premises concentrated in one area, generally related to the impact of crime and disorder. The impact policy limits the number of premises to one area. This means that applications for new premises or club premises certificates or full variations will normally be refused. There's no evidence following the consultation that a cumulative impact policy is required, nor have the police requested this to be included in the policy. As such, the policy does not include any saturation or cumulative impact zones. So to recap, the recommendations to members of the Licensing Public Safety Committee is to note the content of the report, consider the consultation responses and determine whether to proceed to accept the recommendations. And if members are minded to accept those recommendations, then forward this report to the next meeting of the Council with a recommendation for adoption with a policy which would run till 2030. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Do any members present have any questions? Councillor Forshaw.
Thanks, Chair. Can I clarify then, on page 48, are they points that are actually being deleted out of the policy, 3.2 to 3.5?
You okay for it, Chair?
Yeah, you go
Thank you.
for it.
Is that 3.2 to 3.5, did you say? Sorry, Councillor.
Yes.
No, they're being included at the minute. So they're exemptions basically related to the Live Music Act, that premises don't need a licence for live music act and a licensed alcohol licensed premises. So it just refers to that basically, and that conditions can only be imposed on a premises before 11 o'clock if the licence is reviewed.
Could I ask then, just on it, obviously it's not a very popular point, in my opinion, but can we outline what the precedent set by other authorities to control it upon reviews, and which authorities do so?
The regulatory authority for that would be environmental health, so it would give environmental health a chance to put conditions on a licence if there was noise nuisance at a premises.
And do we know which other authorities do actually have that practice in place at the moment?
All authorities would review a licence. If there was noise nuisance, they would take a stepped approach to it. If notice has been served on a premises, they may look to review a licence at a later point, yeah. So
Okay.
conditions would only be imposed after, as part of a review by a committee.
Yeah.
It basically stops us as officers, we can't impose conditions on a licence before 11 o'clock.
Yeah, okay. And then there were just some points that I want to welcome actually, because I know obviously some of it might be on the back of consultations. On page 56, 11.10 to 11.13, I know there's been some changes there, so I welcome that. And I welcome the points made on not going forward with a saturation policy. I think that's the right thing to do. And on page 68, points 30 to 33.4, I think are quite important. I think we need to make sure that all members of the licensing committee look at them, because there's quite some important points made on that. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from anybody at all? No. Okay. So the recommendations are to note the contents of the report, to consider the consultation responses and determine whether to proceed to accept officer recommendations. If members are minded to accept the recommendations, then to agree to forward this report to the next meeting of the Council with the recommendation for formal adoption of the proposed policy, which would run until 2030. I propose the report. I just need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Forshaw. And a show of hands for all those in favour? That was everybody. Thank you. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for your time, everybody, this evening. The next meeting is on